Absolutely. Here's an expanded version of scene 1 to around 1,000 words, fully immersive and without headings. Dash dash dash. The night air was cruel, sharp and biting, slipping through the thick coat Nathan Mercer had thrown on in a rush. The city streets shimmered with wet reflections from the light drizzle that had begun without warning, each droplet bouncing off the pavement like tiny crystal beads. Nathan wasn't used to walking the streets at this hour. His life was filled with boardrooms, investment deals, and the constant hum of technology in every corner of his empire. Yet, here he was, following his daughter's small hand as she tugged him insistently down a narrow alley near a late-night coffee shop. "Daddy, please help her," Lily's voice quivered, soft but urgent, carrying a weight that made Nathan stop in his tracks. He looked down at his daughter, her small frame wrapped in a scarf and jacket, eyes wide and earnest. The seriousness of her tone pierced him more effectively than any business report ever could. Nathan followed her gaze to the shadowed corner of the alley. There, against the graffiti-streaked brick wall, huddled a girl, barely a teenager, her entire body shaking violently. Her hair was wet and matted, clinging to her pale face, and the tattered layers of clothing she wore were soaked, offering almost no protection against the cold that gnawed at her small frame. Nathan's chest tightened. The sight was almost unbearable. Someone so young, so vulnerable, left to fight the merciless city night alone. Hey there," Nathan said softly, kneeling down to meet her eyes. His voice was calm, steady, like a rope thrown into a stormy sea. "It's okay, I'm here now." The girl flinched slightly, but did not move away. Her eyes were wide, suspicious, and full of a fear that ran far deeper than this single moment. It was a fear of being unseen, of being ignored, a fear Nathan could feel in the pit of his stomach. "Please, don't leave me," she whispered, her words barely audible over the drizzle and the distant hum of the city. They were cracked with cold, with fatigue, with the weight of loneliness. Nathan glanced at Lily, who had slid closer to the alley wall, still gripping his coat but wide-eyed, her heart clearly torn between worry and curiosity. Nathan understood. Children often saw the world in black and white, yet even Lily could sense the danger, the despair radiating from this shivering girl. Nathan unzipped his coat slowly, careful not to startle her, and draped it over her thin shoulders. He didn't say anything at first, simply letting the warmth of the coat and the presence of another human being speak for him. The girl shivered violently, then sagged slightly as if the weight of exhaustion had finally caught up with her. "You're safe with us," Nathan said softly, his hand resting lightly on her arm. "I promise you, no one's going to hurt you anymore." Her lips trembled. "Thank you," she managed, a faint, fragile smile breaking through her fear. Her voice was hoarse, raw from the cold and from days without proper nourishment. Nathan could see her eyes glistening, and he realized she hadn't cried in a long time, or perhaps she had, but no one had been there to witness it. Without hesitation, Nathan lifted her gently into his arms. She was lighter than he expected, almost feather-like, but the tremor of her entire body made him instinctively hold her tighter. Lily's small hand gripped his leg as they walked back to his car, her eyes darting between the girl and him, silently asking if they could really do this. Nathan nodded once, reassuringly. "We're bringing her somewhere safe," he said simply. The ride back to the penthouse was quiet at first. The girl wrapped her hands around the blanket he had handed her. Shivering less but still fragile, her gaze fixed on the window as the city lights blurred past. Nathan glanced at her from the corner of his eye. He didn't know her story, didn't know her name, but something about the way she held herself, so small, so cautious, yet not entirely broken, made him feel a mix of protectiveness and determination he hadn't known he possessed in years. When they arrived, Nathan carefully helped her out of the car. The warmth of his penthouse hit her immediately, a stark contrast to the icy streets she had been trapped in. She hesitated at the doorway, glancing back toward the street as if half expecting the nightmare to return. Nathan crouched down to her level. "It's okay, you're home now," he said softly, and this time, she allowed herself to step inside, a cautious, almost tentative step toward safety. He handed her a warm blanket and a cup of hot chocolate. The steam rose in gentle curls, and the warmth of the drink seemed to seep through her frozen fingers, drawing a faint shiver of relief. She drank slowly, savoring it as though it were the first warmth she had felt in months. Nathan watched silently, his mind running through options. He knew this was not a temporary fix. This girl needed more than a blanket and chocolate, she needed stability, trust, and someone who wouldn't abandon her. He gestured to Lily. "Why don't you show her where she can get some dry clothes?" Lily's face lit up with the pride of being helpful, and she guided the girl gently toward the guest room. Nathan stayed behind, watching as the girl's shoulders relaxed just slightly, her first real moment of reprieve in who knew how long. Nathan sat on the couch, running a hand through his hair. He felt a mix of exhaustion and emotion he couldn't quite categorize. He had rescued people before, employees, investors, even the occasional charity case, but this felt different. There was no contract, no business sense to be made here. This was simply human, this was heart. The girl returned moments later with fresh clothes in hand. Nathan handed them to her quietly, not forcing her, not rushing. "Take your time," he said. She nodded, her eyes scanning the penthouse with cautious wonder. The warmth, the comfort, the strange sense of safety, it was almost overwhelming. Finally, she settled onto the couch again, wrapped tightly in the blanket. Nathan knelt beside her, resting a hand gently on her knee. "I know you've had a hard time," he said. "But from tonight, things are going to be different. You won't be alone anymore." Her small hands clutched at his arm, trembling, as if testing the reality of his words. "Please, don't let me go," she whispered once more, and Nathan smiled softly, feeling a lump in his throat. "I won't," he promised. "You're safe now. Welcome home." For the first time in what felt like forever, the girl allowed herself to relax. Nathan could feel her small, fragile body finally letting go of some of the fear she had carried so long. And as he watched his daughter smile gently at this new presence in their lives, he realized that sometimes, saving a life didn't require a grand gesture, it only required showing up, being present, and extending a hand when it mattered most. This expanded scene is now over 1,000 words and fully immersive, highlighting both the emotional depth and the setting of the rescue. If you want, I can also expand scene 2 to 1,000 words so the story becomes a complete cinematic arc. Do you want me to do that next? Absolutely. Here's an expanded version of scene 2, fully immersive and around 1,000 words. Years had passed since that cold night when Nathan Mercer had rescued a shivering, homeless girl from the alley near the coffee shop. The city had changed around them, lights brighter, streets busier, technology faster, but some things had changed more profoundly than any skyline. The girl he had saved had grown into a young woman, strong, confident, and with a quiet determination that carried the weight of her past without letting it define her. Her name was Emma now, and as she stood in the expansive office of Mercer Technologies, she carried herself with the poise of someone who had faced hardship and survived it. The sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, glinting off her dark, polished shoes and the tailored suit she wore. She had chosen her clothing carefully, not to impress, though she knew it would, but to feel capable, professional, and in control. It was a far cry from the tattered, soaked clothes she had worn all those years ago. Nathan entered the office quietly, his usual commanding presence softened by curiosity and a rare sense of anticipation. He paused just inside the doorway, taking in the sight of her. She was no longer the fragile girl he had cradled in his arms. She had grown into someone radiant, not just in appearance but in spirit. "You asked to see me," Nathan said, leaning casually against his desk, though the subtle tension in his posture betrayed his interest. His voice carried that familiar calm authority, but there was something warmer, more personal in the way he said her name, Emma. She met his gaze with steady eyes and a small, genuine smile. "Yes, Nathan," she said, the word carrying the intimacy of years of shared history. "I've been meaning to talk to you about something important. Something I think we can do together." Nathan's brow lifted slightly. He had grown accustomed to her confidence, but there was a seriousness in her tone that immediately drew his attention. "Go on," he said, gesturing toward the chair opposite him. Emma took a measured breath, smoothing her hands over the briefcase she had brought. "I want to give back," she began, her voice firm but calm. "I've been working on a project, a foundation for homeless youth. I want Mercer Technologies to be a partner in this, to help provide shelter, education, and mentorship for kids who, like me once, have nowhere to turn." Nathan felt a lump form in his throat, an unexpected swell of emotion. He had always known Emma had intelligence and drive, but hearing her articulate a plan to help others so clearly, it struck a chord deeper than any boardroom success ever could. "You've thought this through," he said quietly, his eyes softening. "You've really considered how to make a difference." Emma nodded, her gaze unwavering. "I want them to have someone who shows up for them, just like you did for me. Someone who says, 'You matter. You're not alone.' It changed my life, Nathan. I can't imagine not passing that forward." Nathan studied her closely, taking in the subtle confidence in the set of her shoulders, the clear intelligence in her eyes, the quiet empathy that radiated from her words. He thought of the little girl he had found in the alley, shivering, fragile, and so full of unspoken pain. Seeing Emma now, it was almost as though he were witnessing the fruition of hope itself, a life saved and transformed. "I am proud of you," he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. "Not just for what you've become, but for what you're trying to do for others. It's remarkable." Emma smiled, a mixture of gratitude and gentle pride in her expression. "I didn't do it alone. You gave me that first chance, Nathan. You showed me that someone cared, that my life mattered. I carry that with me every day." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "I want to ensure other kids get that same chance. I want them to know someone believes in them." Nathan leaned back slightly, absorbing her words. There was an elegance in her humility, a balance of strength and compassion that reminded him of the girl who had once clutched his coat in the alley. Yet Emma now radiated an independence and purpose that was unmistakably her own. "I want to help," he said finally, his voice steady but infused with emotion. "We can make this happen. Mercer Technologies will support your foundation fully. We'll provide resources, mentorship programs, everything necessary to give these kids the opportunities they deserve." Tears pricked at Emma's eyes, but she blinked them away, not wanting to lose her composure. "Thank you, Nathan," she whispered, her voice catching slightly. "You've given me so much more than a chance at survival. You've given me hope, and the chance to create change. I want to do that for others." Nathan rose from his desk and moved closer, closing the distance between them. "You've grown into someone incredible," he said, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "It's humbling to see the person you've become. I saved you once, Emma, but you've saved more lives than you realize, starting with mine. You remind me why doing the right thing matters." Emma allowed herself to smile fully now, a genuine warmth shining in her eyes. She stepped closer, emboldened by the trust and the bond that had developed over the years. "I'm proud to be part of your life, Nathan. Not just as someone you helped, but as someone you trusted. That trust, it gave me courage to fight for my own life and for others." Nathan pulled her into a gentle embrace, the kind that carried years of memories, hardships, and redemption. The weight of past winters, alleyways, and fear seemed to lift for a moment, replaced by the warmth of connection, of human resilience, of hope realized. In that embrace, Nathan understood something profound. Saving a life wasn't always about grand gestures. Sometimes, it was about showing up, offering unwavering support, and giving someone the courage to rise. The office, the city, the world outside, they all faded into the background. What remained was this shared moment, this recognition of change, growth, and possibility. Emma had taken the chance he had offered her, nurtured it, and transformed it into a force for good that extended far beyond herself. As they pulled back from the hug, Emma held Nathan's gaze steadily. "The work begins now," she said quietly, determination in every syllable. "And I couldn't imagine doing it without you." Nathan nodded, a smile breaking across his face. "Then let's get to work." And in that moment, the years of fear, loss, and uncertainty that had once defined Emma's life seemed distant and almost unimaginable. What remained was hope, action, and the undeniable truth that a single act of kindness could ripple through time, transforming not just one life, but countless others. Nathan Mercer had rescued a freezing girl years ago. Today, that girl was ready to change the world, and he would be there, every step of the way, proud, humbled, and grateful to witness it. This version expands the emotional depth, the dialogue, and the sense of transformation to reach roughly 1,000 words. If you want, I can also craft cinematic image prompts for Scene 1 and Scene 2 that would perfectly visualize both moments for storytelling or illustrations. Do you want me to do that next?